Ashley Vance, people are already putting Elon Musk on a pedestal with Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford. You wrote the book on him. Does he deserve to be there?
I think in terms of the things he's trying to tackle, it's certainly as ambitious as those guys, and he's every bit as inventive. It's a matter of, they certainly had these huge consumer hits that changed everyday people's lives, and Elon hasn't done that yet, although, you know, he is trying to do it.
Let's start with his internet, his PayPal years. He certainly cashed in big, but there were a lot of questions about his management ability. So talk about that.
Yeah, in the early days, he was this very bright guy who had sort of come from a software coding world, and he worked hard, and he pushed people hard, and you know, they respected him, but he wasn't the best manager of people back then. I mean, he tended to sort of berate you instead of trying to encourage you, and at Zip2, his first company, and PayPal, that caught up with him.
How did he go from sending money across the internet to sending rockets and people into space, and then finally the Tesla, the car?
Yeah, he'd been in Silicon Valley doing the internet thing, and then PayPal really hit it big and netted him about $200 million. And he'd always been pining to do something in space, and so now he finally had the money to do it. He actually went for a little time to try to send mice to Mars, and then a plant to Mars, and then he just decided, I'm going to build rockets myself. And then Tesla, you know, he had been looking into electric cars since his college days, and again, he had the money to go fund a project when it came to him.
He has the money and the intensity. Can you talk a little bit about that and its effect on his employees? Because most people aren't as intense as this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most intense guy I've ever met in my life. I mean, he pushes himself really hard, working 20 hours a day, it seems like sometimes. And then, you know, for the employees, 6-day work weeks are kind of the minimum. And in the early days of SpaceX, you got guys that worked 100-hour weeks for years on end. And, you know, he gets a lot out of people, but it can also burn a lot of people out.
Do you think they're following him for his vision, or because they see stock options and money at the end? Because, you know, there's a lot of money involved here.
There's a lot of money involved. I do think genuinely that because both companies, SpaceX and Tesla, have these clear missions, and a lot of these engineers come there for that mission, and that seems to be why he can pull so much out of people and why they are willing to put in these hours.
How much does Elon Musk, the man, match the hype? People talk about him like he's Tony Stark, who's the industrialist playboy in the Iron Man franchise. Is he Tony Stark? Does he think he's Tony Stark?
Yeah, I mean, there's this total caricature of Elon that's out there. You know, I don't think he's full Tony Stark, but there's elements of it. He kind of checked out from Silicon Valley and went to Hollywood. He hangs out with directors and actors, and he really does enjoy that part. I don't think he's, you know, pounding scotch in the back of the Humvee, but sort of on his way, maybe. Now,
the Tesla is an electric car, but the electric car is nothing really new. He's working on an electric battery, rockets into space. None of these are really breakthrough, revolutionary items like the car was for Henry Ford or the iPod was for Steve Jobs. So when it's all said and done, do you think that people view him as a dreamer, or is the jury still yet to come back and reach a decision on him?
Yeah, when I started this book back in 2012, he was definitely fully dreamer stage, I think, and then a couple things arrived, and now he's sort of proved himself out a little bit. But you know, he's got to get a mass market car. He's got to get a reusable rocket, something that's like genuinely so different from what had come before it to, you know, I think to sort of be put in that same pantheon.
And then you spent a whole lot of time with him. Did you get sucked into his orbit? I mean, did you find yourself, all right, I'm going to buy some Tesla stock, I want to follow this guy, whatever his next zany project's going to be?
I mean, there's parts of him that are really likable. He's so intense that we were certainly never friends or anything like that. I mean, the one thing I came away with is, I mean, I do have a respect for the companies, and I mean, the technology itself is so interesting, and it was inspiring.
All right, well, one more question. How do you think he's viewed by the rest of Silicon Valley? Because he's kind of an outsider to Silicon Valley. What do you think that the Zuckerbergs and the Ellisons and those folks say about him? Because he does live a different lifestyle.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a curiosity to some of those guys. You know, he's in such different industries. He's sort of doing his own thing, and these days you hear, I mean, he seems to have inherited Steve Jobs' sort of mantle, and all the startups say, oh, like, I want to be like Elon, but you know, he's a little bit different than these guys.
But does he respect them, or does he also think, well, they're in that whole Silicon Valley world, I'm shooting rockets into space?
He respects some of them, but I think stuff like social networking and it doesn't impress him very much.
All right, well, your book is certainly impressive. Thanks for coming on to talk about it.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
And thank you for watching The Street.